Hey guys, it's Channel Weird. Hey, we're back for another show, and we are excited today to have with us a remarkable guest. And it's not every day we get to talk with somebody who's rubbed shoulders with the greats. And what I'm talking about is Art Bell. We have Michelle Freed with us today, and of course, she is well known as former producer of the Art Bell show, the Midnight in the Desert show. And so it's so awesome to have her with us. Finally, I get to see you now. We were talking about how we weren't going to see each other, Michelle, and there you are. How
Here
you
I
doing?
am. You didn't fall off your chair. That's a good thing.
Is Michelle there?
I'm here.
Oh, you need to turn her on. She needs to be turned on. Are you there, Michelle?
I'm here.
There we go. For some
I'm
reason,
just
we had
happy
you
you
turned
didn't fall
down.
off your chair.
What's that?
I'm happy you didn't fall off your chair.
No, it's you're pretty easy on the eye.
Aw.
We had a little joke going on about the one eye, but now
One
we
eye.
one
Yeah.
eye, two eye, whatever. So okay, so here's the I guess the big question that I think a lot of people want to know: what's it like working with Art Bell? I mean, what's it like producing the Art Bell show?
Right. So it's I came along to Midnight in the Desert when Heather Wade was the host and Art was the executive producer. And so I'll tell you a cute little like how I got the job, which is kind of a synchronicity, I guess. I had gone through a divorce and I was remote viewing, and I had a lot of friends in the remote viewing world, and they all had books. So I just took it upon myself to just reach out to different shows and see if I could get them as a guest to talk to people. And I'm the type that says go big or go home. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to call this Art Bell. And I called up, I spoke to the producer at that time, and I just really pitched the guy that I was pitching. And he loved it. He said he'd get back to me, and nobody really got back to me. I think it took like a month for them to get back to me. And so Heather's the one that called me, and she's like, yeah, I really like this guy. I'm so sorry that, I didn't get back to you, but I lost my producer. So I think she was having trouble keeping producers at the time. So she lost this producer, and I don't know how I did it, but I just somehow uttered the words, hire me. That's all I said, hire me. And she's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, just I'll do it. I mean, that's basically what I'm doing now. I could do this. And so she's like, well, let me talk to Art and let's give you a trial run. So in 3 days, I booked 2 weeks of guests, and they were really impressed and they loved that. And Art said to her, you better hire her right now. And that's kind of how I got the job. I pretty much just asked for it and got it. So that was the beginning of my crazy world, and how it all got started.
Were you cold calling these guests, or did you have connections? I mean,
I
it's
yeah, at the time I had connections because I just knew people through people, just because when I got on the world of remote viewing and also hypnosis, I just kept meeting lots of people, and I just find everybody so interesting. And I kind of feel like I have a good knack for interesting people, I guess, and they liked who I picked. And a lot of them were very unique people. They weren't people that had kind of run the circuit. They were just people that, Art always said, like, he would always say, if you want to find unique guests, you got to, look under rocks, and, find people that you wouldn't normally think to talk to, and just make sure that they're interesting. And he even suggested to find small newspapers in small towns. Sometimes they have like a special story on somebody there, the human interest story. And so I would do those things and kind of find these people that you wouldn't normally see in the public world.
Right.
So those were some of the greatest lessons that kind of set me up for what I do now.
Do you think the reason why Art Bell and shows like this that are so successful is because they look for that Americana that doesn't get covered in the mainstream?
I think it's that too. And then my personal opinion is, and I tell, because I work with a lot of people, I coach them on podcasting. And my number one thing, it's not always, and I think you get this, but it's not always about the guest. It's about selling you. It's about selling Clyde. It's about selling art and becoming an expert in the area so that your listeners can trust you and be loyal to you. So, when you tell them something, they want to listen or they want to hear, because some of these guests that aren't so unique, and then of course you want them on too. But what's unique is how you question them, how you kind of take another point of view, and people love that, because they can answer the same old questions on 50 million shows. So the idea is having a very good host, and art was very good at that. He was able to get people feeling very comfortable, so that they would talk about things that you didn't expect them to talk about. I feel like Howard Stern, I'm not a huge fan of him, but I think he's really good at that too. He makes
Yeah.
people feel comfortable and they end up telling like every secret in the closet.
I think a lot of it has to do with Art. Whenever I would talk with him on the telephone, because we were at one time when he was, I guess, WABC, he was getting a gig with WABC, and he said that he wanted to start the show over again, and he wanted to take my 2 hours that I had for KXL to also. And I was negotiating with him on this, talking with him on this. And
Oh,
the funny thing about Art Bell is that he's disarming in a lot of respects. He just has a way to disarm you.
yeah.
And I think it has a lot to do with not the fact that he could disarm me, the fact that he was Art Bell. I think that was the thing that was most interesting, is that, no matter what Art would do, no matter what he would say, I would always say, "Sure, Art," because I don't know. It's just he had one of those, I guess, intriguing ways about himself where, you know, what he said was gold. What he said was God. What he said was, you better listen. That's the whole point of Art. And that's the thing, is that, I have a lot of gimmicks and fancy stuff I do on my show, and it's because I have a background in production, and I have a background in listening to old radio shows and having theater of the mind. But he was never that fancy. He was never that over the top. He was just art. He was able, he calls it the art of talk. Well, that's exactly what it was for him. It was the art of
Mhm.
talk. It was the art of trying to reach people, reach into something that I don't think they understood that they had in them. And that's a talent. Very, I mean, and that's another thing too. He was folksy in a lot of respects too. He was able to relate to people, and that was the talent right there. And some
Exactly.
people have it, and some people don't.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a very good point. And just kind of taking I would imagine like going out with some friends for a beer or coffee, whatever, and just sitting around and talking out about a particular subject, being able to take that energy or feeling of that situation and then make someone forget that they're literally, millions of people are actually listening to you. That's very good. That's a talent.
Yeah, very much so a talent. And it spans all kinds of topics, so see, and that's the thing, is that being a producer such as you are, you find yourself, and I'm just asking, do you find yourself spreading yourself over so many topics and so many ideas, and are you fascinated with all of the things that you're looking into?
Yeah, I kind of feel like I should have a PhD in, I don't even know what to call this field anymore. I should have a PhD in the unexplained and mysterious. Just call me Dr. Michelle,
Right.
because I am in this situation where I literally can talk to all these experts in the field, and I do a lot of pre-interviews with people, and so I'll always stick my own personal question in there. And I just feel, I end up feeling so knowledgeable on these subjects. And, like I said a little earlier, when your producer, Ron, says, "Oh, I need a guest to talk about, do you know anybody?" And then I challenge myself, wow, I do know somebody. So it's really cool. And I'm just so grateful for that opportunity.
Well, yeah, we thank you for working with Ron, and it does. You've given us some pretty interesting people to talk to, granted. And you were saying earlier something about remote viewing, and I was like, I don't want to pass that up because that's always been something that's fascinated me. You were saying you remote view this or whatever. I mean, tell us about your background in remote viewing.
So I've been remote viewing for about 20 years, 10 years, probably about 10 years. And I've been working with, on a lot of projects with a lot of important people. And it has turned into my passion because working with missing persons and homeland security and people on climate change, all sorts of different projects. And then also working on the unexplained things, where, is there an alien base on the moon and things like that. My passion has come about because working on missing persons, for example, I want them to call us first. I don't want us to be the last resort where, okay, we've tried everything and now we'll call the remote viewers or psychics or whatever. And so I have started teaching classes because I want everyone to be using this, because not only can it help these organizations and this, but it can also do personal help with yourself because you can remote view personal questions. There's also a kind of remote viewing where you can predict a future outcome, and we're using that to predict the stock market, sporting events, all sorts of things in that area. So there's just so many different aspects to use this. And it's a little different than, some psychics will say, "Oh, I remote view." And what they're saying is, well, I can project myself to a location and describe it. But what we do is really scientific based. Not formal scientific, although I do have a few papers that I co-wrote that have been published where we did actual scientific method on it, because we want to kind of get the word out to the general mainstream public that this stuff does work. We don't know how, but we know it does, and we have evidence of that.
I went
So,
to I went to a remote viewing session. It was a seminar because I was interested in it. And one thing that I learned, and I don't know if you agree or not, everybody has the ability to remote view. Is this true?
yes, so what we're doing, we're taking something that is innate in all of us and making it more of a skill, a practice. And my thought is that here's an example where we, back when we were primitive, we could just smell the rain coming, or a certain kind of weather that's going to happen. And now we use an app on the phone to find out what the weather is going to be. So it's kind of like those things in us kind of atrophied, and they kind of, I guess, put them to sleep because we don't need them. We can just look at our phone or, get the information in another way. So it's kind of like waking that part of ourselves up and then practicing, kind of like a martial art. And it becomes a skill, and putting it all together. And the more we do it, the more we learn about so many things about our potential as human beings.
Yeah.
And also the balance of how we can cope with left brain and right brain, balancing how that works. So there's a yeah.
Well, one of the things that I've learned about, and one thing that I'm really hot on right now is the idea that a lot of the paranormal things that happen, and a lot of things like remote viewing and all, and ESP and all these things, we have tuned this out. We have tuned out these abilities because we have something known as the Troxler effect. It's kind of um, a vision phenomena where things are around us all the time. It's just that we've tuned out or we get used to having them. Sometimes when we read, you can put a word in that's misspelled, you still see it. Because you take for granted the word positions. You wear your socks every day, and you don't remember. You don't even think about wearing your socks, but they're on, right? You don't feel that. The only thing I saw Michael Shermer actually. I was watching some sort of cursed films. I was watching the show about cursed films, and Michael Shermer, who's a well-known skeptic, came on and he did an experiment using the Troxler effect, which I thought was very effective. There was these people passing a basketball in this video, and he says, "Watch how many times the basketball is being passed." And so I'm watching, intently on how the basketball is being passed. And then he says, "Do you remember the monkey walking through the group? Or did you see that guy in the ape suit walking through the group?" And I thought, "No, I didn't see it." He says, "Let me play it back for you." And he played it back in slow motion. And sure enough, while they were passing the basketball, this guy walks in a monkey suit, just walks between them and then leaves. And I'm thinking to myself, I swear to God, I didn't see the guy in the monkey suit. And it's just a trickery that if you say pay attention to this certain area, something could be going on and you wouldn't even know it if you're focusing on something else. So if we're continually focusing on our material reality, what's going to happen in the metaphysical reality? What's happening in the subconscious reality? And so this is where we can get into the idea of what remote viewing is, or even, you look up in the sky and somebody says, "I see a UFO." Well, I don't see it. Well, let me point it out to you. You point it out to the person, and all of a sudden they see it, or a
Right.
ghost, or
Yeah.
something like that. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, I have 2 points to that. The one thing is basically how I describe to people what hypnosis is focused attention. So if everybody's attention is on that basketball, then you're not going to see the monkey coming through. And a lot of people don't realize that also hypnosis or being in a trance state is it's a normal human function. It's the same kind of thing like if you're watching TV and somebody leaves the house or walks through the room, you had no clue because you were focused on whatever you're watching on TV. And I know this kind of goes in a different direction, but marketing people have figured out how to leverage on that because they have your focused attention and they can kind of put suggestions in there. Once they have you in a trance state, you're open
Right.
for different suggestions to come in. So that's that. Then the other thing I wanted to talk about that I'm not sure if this is related, but it was an experience that I had where somebody sent me, like, as you're in radio, they send you products to test.
Yeah.
And they sent us a virtual reality kind of kit with a cell phone and something on your ears and the whole thing. So I tried it out, and it was a paranormal one because I wanted to try to I guess have a TV show that was very virtual reality, which people would have this on, and it was kind of a show that they wanted to do. And so I put it on, and I don't know if you've tried virtual reality, but it's incredible. Like you
Yeah.
really feel that this is real, and you can't look up, you can't look like everything, everywhere you turn your head up, down, it's all your reality, and to the point where your body is actually reacting. They had this scary scene and the kind of music in the background, and I don't scare very easily, and I was getting a little creeped out. Well, so here I have deprivation. I can't see, I can't hear. And I sensed somebody walked into the room while I was doing this. And I came to the realization, like, wait a minute, I can't see. I feel somebody walked in with my spidey senses.
Right.
But I couldn't see them because this was my reality. And I couldn't hear them because that was my reality. And it just occurred to me like this could be what it is.
Yeah.
Where when
A
we talk
parallel
about
reality. Right.
exactly.
Where you're sensing somebody in a parallel reality, or you're sensing something in a parallel reality, and yet you have your goggles on, you're seeing what's in front of you. It's this concept. It's very quantum in a lot of respects. We're going to be back. Michelle Fried's with us today. We're talking about a lot of good things right now, a lot of cool things, and so we want you to stay tuned with us here on Channel Weird as we've been talking about remote viewing. We've been talking about what it's like to produce for Art Bell. I mean, so many good things going on with Michelle Fried. Stay with us. Don't go away.
It's all over the news, food shortages and scarcity in the supply chain. And the reality is nobody truly knows what might happen in the near future. Hi, I'm Clyde Lewis, and I want to let you know that it's a good idea to plan ahead so you aren't caught off guard. Nothing's more important than having enough food to eat, and we're here to help. We highly recommend My Patriot Supply, America's leading emergency preparedness company. They provide long-term emergency food that lasts up to 25 years in storage. When grocery stores run empty or disasters strike, their foods will be there when you need them most. Act now and secure at least a 4-week emergency food kit full of tasty meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. They have dozens of emergency food storage kits to choose from, along with a variety of other survival products. If the government tells you not to go out, you can have the peace of mind that comes from being prepared. After you order from My Patriot Supply, your food will arrive discreetly at your doorstep. Prepare today, because time is short. Go to preparewithgroundzero.com. That's preparewithgroundzero.com.
And that's just so weird because...
Hey guys, it's Clyde Lewis from Ground Zero. You know, with the rise of the cancel culture and an increase in social media censorship, we need to make a big change. So we decided to create a very unique digital platform. It's called Aftermath. It's an exclusive online multimedia library featuring an interactive social media section, the chat room, videos, audio clips, archived Ground Zero podcasts, documents, books, and magazines. Our news aggregator provides current news relating to many of the topics we cover. We're expanding our research and study groups as well, which presently includes Tracy Twyman, William Cooper, Mae Brussel, and Jim Keith. Also, check out popular podcast Conspirafact with Wes and Bill. Updated apps will be available soon. The monthly subscription for Aftermath is only $10 a month, and if you sign up now for the yearly subscription, it's only $79. You want to hear the shows you love and support Great Talk Radio. Go to aftermath.media. Again, that's aftermath.media. Right now, the world couldn't be more chaotic. History shows us what gold does when the world goes crazy. It goes up in value. Right now, we're in unprecedented times. The pandemic, the war in Ukraine, the devaluation of the U.S. dollar. Gold and other precious metals are a defense measure against the hyperinflation that's happening right now. So, what can you do to protect yourself? This is what you do. Call my friend Alan Johnson at United Gold Group. He's dedicated to helping people secure their retirement income. He'll help you with gold, silver, and other precious metals and show you how to set up your own self-directed IRA. Safe and secure, United Gold Group makes gold ownership easy and affordable. There couldn't be a better time. Call now and get a Silver American Eagle proof set with a qualified IRA. Call 800-753-8534. Again, that's 800-753-8534 or visit UnitedGoldGroup.com.
Michelle Fried's with us on Channel Weird, and we are very happy to have her here. We were talking very intently about remote viewing, talking about parallel universes, talking about virtual reality, and how while she was in a room wearing the goggles, she sensed someone was there, and you kind of make the comparison to being in one world and having another world going on outside of the world you're in. And we've tuned it out, I think. I think we've and you were talking about trances, and you were talking about how the human mind. It's a natural occurrence in the human mind. But, usually in hypnosis, you're put into a trance and then you're able to explore certain areas of your subconscious or your unconscious mind. It's kind of like a meta tour, if you will. You've, I'm sure, have seen hypnosis with going back and looking at past lives and regression therapy and all that. What's your thought on that?
Well, so I think we talk to people a lot about, like, general science or psychology will imagine the brain split into two. They say conscious and unconscious. When we talk about maybe more of the psychic, or when we're doing these kinds of things, hypnosis, we actually split the brain into three. So we actually we divide up. We have the conscious, subconscious, and then unconscious. So we actually kind of divide up the consciousness. And obviously we pretty much know left brain is logic. It's where we draw conclusions, we analyze things. And in the subconscious, this is where we store permanent memory. And this is for all time, permanent memory. It also is a place where it doesn't understand words. It's mostly operates from metaphors and symbolism and things like that. And every word that you speak is connected to an emotion. And that's pretty much how it operates. And then the unconscious is really what is automatic, like your blinking of your eyes, your heart beating. And also when you talked about, going into a trance and that we can't really see things that pop in, because everything's kind of on automatic. We're just kind of running through our life, doing what we need to do. And it will react to anything in the subconscious. So if your subconscious is having a feeling of being tired, so if it feels tired, then the unconscious will start putting your body to sleep. And so that's kind of how all three work. When we work in remote viewing, it's really important, and we start to explain to our students that we don't want to name anything. We want to describe it. And the reason we say that is because we need to balance this left brain and the right brain, because the left brain wants everything to make sense in the world. Everything the left brain finds patterns. Everything has to make sense. The right brain is operating from the place of all your senses, what your body is feeling and sensing and things like that. And we found that when you sense something, that is more accurate than when the left brain comes in, because that could be subjective. And so that's how I believe that this all comes together. I don't know does that make sense? Because usually I teach like a big class. I'm trying to shorten it into a summary. But
I think what we'll find, I would agree with you. I think what we'll find if we explore the mind even more is that this is how we're able to explore other worlds, because it's all world within world within world. The realities that we're in, it's like, we may be in the mind of something else. We may be in a virtual reality show of someone else that someone else has put together, or maybe sympathetic aliens are watching us, like an Encyclopedia Britannica or something. It's hard to comprehend that, but when you look at, I've looked at things like quantum entanglement and quantum, what they call quantum immortality, basically saying that what we are is like there's this transmission, and all of these different frequencies are transmitting into these bodies. We're like radios and TVs, and then when the radio and TV breaks down, that broadcast goes somewhere else. And it's going into someone else or something else, or it's going out into the void somewhere, and it finds another vessel to occupy. Right. And so it's just the idea, it's the progression situation. And this is why I think that you're able to hypnotize people, put the mind in a different mindset, go to past lives, go to all, because we have had past lives. We have had, some of us were just new at this. We're a new frequency, a new broadcast, but there is innumerable as stars in the sky, pretty much, and that's what it is. It's an amazing thing to contemplate, because it's just layer upon layer upon layer of virtual reality on virtual reality on virtual reality. And I think people, when they realize this, they'll find that it's comforting to know this in a lot of ways. Maybe it's scary for some, but I think it's very comforting to know it.
Yeah, and I think like something that's important with all that is if you surround it by an intention. I recently had a class where we just for fun did a past life regression, and how we set it up was we set an intention that we're going to go to an important life in the past and bring something that is important from that life, or skill, a message or something, and bring it into this world. And when you put that intention out there, and then you kind of allow yourself to go into a trance, and then you guide I guided them through, that kind of opens up this kind of, I don't know, portal or gateway, because I kind of think it, like the Akashic records, it stores everything there is or ever will be. And that's really, our mind is kind of connected to that. And so because we're human, we can't have all that information just out there. We have to go get it. And, it's almost like, kind of, the Dewey Decimal System in the library. It's like you have to go find, what information you want and then go get it. So that's kind of what we're doing on, this kind of spiritual way. We're kind of setting an intention. What kind of bit of information do we want to grab from the past? We can also go into the future, because as we know that time is happening all at once, pretty much. So we can go anywhere we want and to pull out what we need. And it's pretty incredible. I mean, these people that I was working with had like really cool stuff happening. So it's really cool. It's great. I love it. And that's
Do you think it's the key? All of this would be the key to time travel, multiverse, all of this. I mean, is it in the mind? Are the things that we're getting, all paranormal experiences, do they come from the subconscious mind, and do they manifest in the real world, or are they already manifested and we just absorb them, and every once in a while there's a glitch and we see them?
Yeah, I do think they come from the subconscious, because that is kind of like our bridge to this information. I feel like when you start adding language and communication to all these things, things start becoming subjective, and that's where people, based on their personal history, can kind of change the outcome of something and how they see it and their perspective. And I think the neutral ground is in the subconscious, where it's just, you don't have any kind of noise in there. The trick is being able to, get in there and, because you do have your left brain constantly. I know I'm talking a lot about left brain, right brain, but you have the logic or the subjectiveness that keeps wanting to pull you to make sense out of everything. And so if you can get yourself to this kind of bridge where you can experience these things, you can pull in all the information from, different worlds and things like that. So in remote viewing, how we set up a target is, number one, we don't tell people what the target is at all. They have no idea. They get a random number and they follow the protocol that they were taught. And that way there's no biases. The only challenge you have is making sure that you're not naming things, that you're just describing.
Right.
And that's how we kind of set that up. And that's how we get really good data that we can count on. So,
It's all about images in the head. It's because I wrote about, or I talked about an experience I had at a remote viewing get together, and I remember they had a thing in an envelope. It was a picture in an envelope, and they said, describe what you see in the envelope. Describe the picture we have in the envelope, and rather than naming it, you had to describe it.
Right.
And I saw this thing that looked like a capsule or a pill, and it had these things extending out of it, and it had windows on it. And I was thinking, is this like a UFO that I'm remote viewing? Is this something that I've never seen before? I don't know exactly what it is. And so I figured, is it a flying car? Is it, there's a number of things that came to mind when I was thinking about this thing. It was funny because they says, just let your body relax and you start opening up to what it may be, and, all this stuff. And I was doing it. And then the reveal came, and it really floored me because the reveal was a tram. We have an aerial tram here in Oregon that looks like a pill, and then it's attached to a wire that goes from a medical facility to another medical facility. And I just thought, wow, and here I was thinking it was a flying car. I thought it was a UFO. And that's because I was only seeing like shadows of the image.
Right.
And I began to realize what psychics do. They see shadows of the image. And it's not a matter of to be a psychic. I don't think it's a matter of being accurate. It's a matter of interpreting things the right way.
Exactly.
They see these images, and if they're a good interpreter of the images they see when they come in contact with people, or when they come in contact with when they have their images or visions, they have to be able to interpret them properly. If not, they're not a good psychic. So what they basically are is they're interpreters of images they see with their subconscious.
Right.
And so it's not like, that's why people always say, well, if you're such a psychic, why don't you give us the lottery numbers? If you're such a psychic, why don't you do this? It's because that's not how it works. It's images. Right. It's images that basically people see in their heads. It could be a movie. It could be a book. It could be anything where they're describing it.
Right. That's absolutely true. That's a really good example. A lot of times we use this example of an apple and we say, like, how would you describe it? And people will commonly say red and shiny and round. And then we'll say, well, what if I told you it was a truck? Yeah. And your target is finding a missing person. So what that can do is, if you're thinking that you're describing an apple and you keep going through your session and you start describing a banana and et cetera, and you're describing a fruit basket when you're really trying to find this person that's missing and the red truck is important, you'll completely miss it. And so that's a challenge, is that, like Joe McMoneagle said, he's like one of the first remote viewers in the military. And he says, he said to me, Michelle, if you want to be a world-class remote viewer, you really have to give up what it is to be human. And that means that everything has to make sense. And before he said that to me, my sessions were so, like, they had a cute little pink bow on them and they were so perfect. Everything had to make sense, everything. But when I started to let go of that need for everything to make sense, my sessions started to get usable. They had good information in there. And that's really the key. And that is a challenge at the same time, because we are human. So when people come and say, well, why can't you win the lottery or make money? I say, number one, we are, and we have a huge group of people, and I have evidence that people are winning money doing it. But also, it is not something we can count on, because we're human and we're flawed. If we were not human and we could get over this hump, then it's a challenge. It's a burden. It's something that we have to keep practicing to get better at.
Yeah, it's like that old Russian story about the little boy that was running through the streets saying, I need to find my mother. And so, what does she look like? And the little boy says, she's the most beautiful woman in the world. and they're like going, okay, well, we'll look for your mother. So what they did is they gathered all the prettiest women that they felt were in the town. They said, is this your mother? No. Is this your mother? No. Is this your mother? No. And then sitting just off to the side was this woman. She had, chipped teeth, and she was all wrinkly and had warts on her face and everything.
One eye.
And that was her. That was his mother, the most beautiful woman in the world. and it's like it's all about interpretation, like you say. It's like, people describe something, and it could be of opinion that it's the most beautiful thing they've ever seen, or it is an apple, or I mean, there are a lot of bright, shiny red things that you can see in your mind's eye, but the interpretation is what's important. And so that's
Exactly.
what makes you a good remote viewer, a good psychic, is that you've learned to trust your images, trust your
Yeah.
intuition, trust the intent, and that's how it works. And it's something that I think a lot of people, if they were to have more confidence about, they would trust their intuition. It's like the gut feeling you hear about all the time. Gut feeling and heart and mind; those three things are part of the simplest, I guess. It's the simplest sense we have that we haven't tapped into yet. The
Right.
idea of heart, mind, and gut. That if the gut's telling you something is wrong, or if the heart's telling you something is wrong, the mind has to engage, because the mind is the last thing. Like you say, the right brain is the last thing to identify it, because the left brain is sensitive, or seeing the patterns, it's understanding this stuff. And then, of course, what does your heart tell you? They always tell you you feel something, and maybe you should trust your instincts, unless you have
Hmm.
a broken picker. But I'm just saying that most of the time, I think people, if they hone in on what they're truly feeling, then
Right.
maybe they'll be able to, work more within this multiverse we live in, and have a more open mind to it.
Yeah,
It's
that's actually what you're talking about. There was somebody that was working on a project to use remote viewing to win the lottery, and they used something similar. She set up, I think she had like the numbers from 0 to 9, and she set up a what do you call it, like a calibration or something, where she would put her hand over each number and see where it feels in her body. So you really have to be so sensitive to pick it up. Like, the 0 made her toe tingle, and the 1 made her eye blinked, or and she went through all the numbers, and then so that once she set up that, I guess, calibration, then she would actually play the lottery. She won $100,000 using
wow.
that technique. Yeah.
Well, it's like, you see a pattern, and I always tell my audience, I say, you need to notice the patterns. It's not just, people always say, well, it's conspiracy theory. Well, no, it's not conspiracy theory. People tend to throw around terminology that they don't understand. No, sometimes coincidences are more than coincidences. They're
Mhm.
patterns, and you need
Right.
to start noticing patterns and understanding patterns, because they're portents, they're signs. People say, well, look for the signs, understand the signs, understand, the precursory moment where you can make your decision and hopefully avoid a disaster, or hopefully reap the benefits of something that's going to be really good, because that's the basis of faith, really.
Right.
People always say, well, how can you have faith in a God? Well, I just know that maybe there's a God. I just know that there's a God out there, and I'm hoping. I hope and pray in faith, and there's nothing wrong with having a little faith in something.
Not
Having
at
a leap of faith, that's what it is. By taking a leap of faith, you're taking a leap into the unknown. You're taking a leap into a place that you've never been before, and then once you're there, you have to kind of improvise.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I think in some of these things where we're predicting a future outcome, and essentially what we're doing is taking a peek into the future and throwing the information back into the past. And so that leads to this bigger question. Like, if I have a choice that I need to make about something, and I look into, 3 months into the future after that choice has been made, whatever it is,
Mhm.
and I see the outcome of it, and I send the information back, and then I choose, either keep on that one or change my choice.
Right,
The question is, would we, like, obviously we can do it, we are doing it,
right.
but is it something we should be doing? I mean, that's the question. Like, do we want to miss out? Like, I know we will miss out on a lot of painful choices, but do we want to miss out on painful choices, because those are the choices that we learn the most from?
Yeah, they're teachable experiences. They certainly are teachable experiences, and yeah, you're right about that. Do we want to? See, I'm a firm believer in retro causality. I think that there are people who get sick from eating something bad that they ate like 3 days, before they got sick. I know that's a weird concept because there's always cause and effect, but effect before the cause is something that happens a lot, and people don't notice it unless they're picking up on it. That sometimes things happen in the future that are affecting you right now, and you have to capture that. You have to figure that out. It's hard to figure out, but just thinking of the idea that the future is actually acting on you now in the present, and it's also created your past as well.
Yeah, I was thinking about that like right before we came together for this. I was thinking about anxiety. Like millions of people have anxiety.
Mhm.
And there are times where I'll get like a burst of anxiety about something. And then I kind of scan through my life and I'm thinking, well, why am I anxious? I have nothing going on. My body's feeling this weird thing. And so today I was like, wait, maybe I'm feeling anxiety from something that's gonna happen.
Mhm.
It hasn't happened yet, but I'm all ready. And there is, shoot, I can't remember his name. Dr. I have to find out his name, but he did this really famous experiment where he took college students and
Milgram?
what?
No, it wasn't Milgram. No, I'm just trying to think of
Well,
Dr. Milgram.
Bengstrom,
Oh,
Bengston, Dr. Bengston, I think,
yeah.
something like that. And he took these college students and loaded up 100 pictures on a computer, and some were provocative pictures. And they put them up in all the sensory, to get all the data, the heart rate and everything. And all they had to do was advance to the pictures. And what they found was that their body spiked before the provocative picture was even shown to them. So it's proving that our bodies do react before something happens.
Yeah.
So, but I just didn't put it all together like, oh, maybe I'm feeling anxious about something that hasn't even happened yet.
That's extrasensory perception, is it not? That's what they call it. If
Hmm.
you're sensing something before it happens, it's extrasensory.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I've always been of the opinion that we're all, I think we're all telepathic. I think we all have telepathy in us somewhere, and that we can utilize telepathy if we just listen. They always say, listen to that small voice in your head, listen to that small spirit speaking to you. And, if you want to get religious, they call that the light of Christ. They call that, the Holy Spirit. They call that that small voice. They call it the promptings of the Spirit. I can go down the list of everything they call it. And, they give it a nice hallmark package. But the truth is, it's extrasensory perception. The truth is, we're all telepathic. We're all psychic. If we didn't believe in telepathy, we wouldn't pray. I mean, that's what
Yeah.
all prayer is. It's affirmation and telepathy. You're sending a telepathic message or an affirmation. They call it in the Kabbalah, they call it a hebel. You're throwing a hebel to the heavens, and it can either be a curse, or it can be a prayer, or it can be a silent whatever, and it is supposed to make things change. A
Yeah.
hebel can make things change just by a word or an action or a thought. And that's
Yeah.
how I think people need to utilize that a lot more in their lives, and they'll be happier.
Yeah. I mean, it's related to intention.
Hmm.
Intention to me, I just live my life with intention.
Yeah.
And there's an article that Joe McMoneagle and Dr. Ed May wrote called Intention, Intention, Attention, and Expectation. And living your life in that way is a form of manifestation.
Right.
So yeah, whatever you call it, that's, I think, to me it's magic, because
That's the way to look at it. It is
yeah,
magic. We live in a magical world.
we
Michelle,
do.
I'm seeing that we're running out of time, but I'd like to thank you for being with us today on Channel Word. Very interesting conversation, and we love working with you and hopefully talking with you again. That'd be awesome.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you. And once again, you can join us every Saturday around 1 p.m. for Channel Weird. And also, you can join us also around 7 p.m. as we rerun the show on the Ground Zero Facebook page, TalkStream PDX. Everywhere you can look on the internet, you'll find us. Thank you again for joining us. This Channel Weird. I'm Clyde Lewis. Have a great day.